Welcome back to the railroad, everyone. Today we have a new project for you. My wife has a collection of Nuts cars that are a little too heavy to pull with anything other than a 6-axled engine. So we're going to use a little different method. We're going to try something new. So here is a little view of what these cars actually look like. First, let's start off with the 1998 Cannon car. The human cannonball actually shoots out of the car. Next, we go to the 1997 observation car, and the top rotates in this car. Next is the 1994 car, and then we have the 1999 fish tank car. Now the fish actually rotates around inside the tank. Then we go to the 1996 gazebo car, really cool. And last, but definitely not least, the 1995 Carnival food stand car. All of these cars are heavy. They're all made out of metal, and with the mechanisms in them, it makes them a little bit heavy to pull. So you need a very strong engine. So most of the little engines like this, a 2-axle engine, does not have the power to pull consist of 6 of the Nuts cars. So what we're going to use is this LGB 2017, that's the model number for this unit, which the tender and the engine are both powered. And that should be plenty of power to pull along the Nuts cars. And it'll look good because it's a regular combination. So let's get into this. Okay, these are great little LGB stands engines. This is a 2017. It's not a D, so it does not have a smokestack that operates. However, they're not that hard to disassemble. Now, these cases are a 2-piece case that has to be split to be greased and lubed. We're not going to go into that fully today. What we're going to do is change this from a track power to a remote control with a train engineer. And we'll be doing that for both this and the tender. So, our first step in this is we don't want to break this again. So I popped it off and glued it back together. We will basically take the stack and turn it. There's a screw on the bottom that drops off, a nut on the bottom, and this holds our snowblade. When you pull it out, your light system will become loose. So be careful with that. It's going to float here for a while. Now this one is not a stack with a smoke unit in it, so we'll just set that aside. The other thing you'll notice is this engine does not have a front coupler. We'll do a little revisions on that and put a front coupler on it later. But for now, we'll look and see here. The only things that held this together were the front bolt. These 2 bolts hold the engine block into the case, and this bolt holds the rear coupler in. So we need to remove these 3, and always have your tray ready to keep the loose screws in. Then this should just pull right out, and then these 2. Remember, these are plastic or a metal bolt into plastic, so when you do tighten them back up, be careful. Make sure the bolts are in the threads before you tighten them. Now, with that done, the only thing else that's holding this are these 2 little clips here. One there, and one on this side. And now, I don't know if you heard it, but there's a weight inside the stack unit here, and that weight is now loose because it was held in place with this stack bolt. Okay. Now, the whole unit should come right off. And there we are. Your unit's free. It's kept. Simple, easy. Now, rather than breaking this in half and checking all the greasing, we will grease the axles on each of the 4 corners, but I'm going to remove the power pickups that are in here. They're there, here, and here. And by removing those, and removing these track pickups, which are getting pretty rough, we'll connect power leads to here and here, and run them back to the tender, and we'll do the similar on the tender, and then we'll have our RC right there. This is going to be your most difficult chore. You can remove this slide gently. Oh, before you do that, take this one screw out in the very center of the bottom. Okay. Now, this will come up and out. I would suggest keeping your screws where possible in the different mechanisms. Now, okay, so we're going to screw here. Leave it there. All right. Now we get to deal with the eccentrics and these. So to do that, I'm going to use needle nose on these. Very carefully back them off. This is a metal screw going into a plastic sleeve. Okay, the eccentric comes off, the screw comes off. Your eccentric is always pointed in to the center. You can remove that, let it settle. Next in line is your drive line up to your air cylinder, your steam cylinder. Then you have a washer. You want to watch that washer, you don't want to lose it. That'll be next. And then lastly, you remove that. Now, at this point, I can go ahead and remove this screw and take that wheel off to get that. However, what I want to do is do this side as well. So I remove this carefully, remove the eccentric, remove the steam line, take the washer off, and then the connecting rod. Now, this unit should, nope. Okay, and you notice I can just feed those through. So when you go to put this back together, you'll just feed these two lines through and set it down into there, okay? Okay, we'll set this aside. Now we don't have to take that off right now. We need a flat screwdriver. We want one that's about the same size as that, fits in nicely. Remove it. Now this is a metal screw into a metal shaft, but you still need to make sure your threads are connected. Before you tighten it down, you want to make sure the threads are smooth and into there. Okay, now we're just going to pull this off. You may need to work it a little bit. There. Just to put a little leverage on the back so you're not pulling too much on that plastic ring. Okay, and there went our unit. And that spring's pretty dead. Or that unit. Okay. Now that one can go right back on again. There, fits over. Okay, that one is done. Put this back together. And we'll do the same for the other 3 wheel sets. We're going to disconnect all the electric. So I'll come back in a minute. Okay, now one thing I did forget to mention to you is when you take these off, and this is my last of the 4 wheels that I have to remove, there is a lock ring that goes around this. Now, sometimes it doesn't quite come off, so you need to pick it off to make sure you have it. Right there it is. And that goes on the bolt. Want to make sure we have those, you don't lose them. Okay, and again, just a gentle nudge to get that wheel set to come off. Now you notice that is out here, so you want to make sure it goes back on the same way. Okay, and we have our other contact and spring. Okay, now we'll get that wheel back on the same way. Okay, that was nice. So, something I found in the past is always double check everything you're doing. So I was going to solder 2 leads onto the side pickups. However, what I forgot is that here inside the cab, there are a plus and a minus connection points, which usually bring power back to a secondary unit, whether it's a lighted car or whatever. And what I found out is with the plus and minus I can run the engine from those connections, and it's not picking up power from any of the wheel sets. So what we're going to do is make a jack to go in here. We'll connect that to our tender, and we'll work from there. So I'll come back in a little bit once I figure this out. Okay, so we have this figured out now, how we're going to power it up. And I made a couple of other little fixes while we were off air. Does anybody remember how to put this all back together? I hope so. I don't. Okay, actually I do. So we're going to set the bars up here. Now, those two bars, the connecting rods, we want to go through these two channels here. So set this one up, through, and then we'll set this one up, through, and then we just lower this down. Okay, one side at a time. We do the connecting rod first. It's a tight fit. Then remember, we have a washer. So we do the washer next. That's a tight fit. So what I found helps is I just start it a little, and then I use the steam cylinder bar to push that in. There, okay. Now remember, that last piece always goes on facing the middle of the wheel. Gently put that in. It's not a tight fit at all. Okay, now the other side. Okay. Now, next we need to put the cylinder. Okay, now, the trick to it is you have to get this long rod in, and then you have to get the metal rods. So I set the long rods in, and then I adjust the metal rods. Little hole in the top. Okay, you don't want to bend those. Okay, now we use the shorter of the screws that was in our bin to connect this back again. It's not very tight. Okay, and we're back together. Now, the main body slides over. Now, oh, and we've got to go back because I missed this. This has just a little notch that holds it into this. Sometimes it gets caught here and it doesn't release it. So, there. Now we can do that. And this one. There. Okay. Now that should stay in there pretty well. We can go ahead and slide this in. Because that is the device that locks this in place. Right there. Okay. Now one of the long screws holds that one in place. Okay. So the rear is held on pretty well. Now, okay, so it's kind of an awkward one, but I built a temporary coupler, forward coupler. So to put this back together finally, all you have to do is take the stack, set your mast headlight, set your headlight there, run the stack down through it. It should go through that. And then, okay, so I was wrong. It fits. It just needed a little persuasion, friendly persuasion. Okay, roll her over. We have our plow, which fits on. It has two dimples here that go into these. And your screw at the bottom, and just turn it. It tightens it right up. Okay, so that brings that up tight. Then the last thing we do is put on these two screws. Okay, so now our engine is ready to go. We basically removed all the electrical contacts from the four wheels. I've removed the two rail slides that will pick up power. And now, to pick up power, we have these two plugs. This is a regular LGB plug. And you plug one into the one side, and you push the other one into the other side. Now it doesn't matter red to black, black to red, because this is just directional. When we attach the car, it will apply power. Okay. Yep. So that's how we're going to get our power. we're going to run right back to the tender, and we'll have power coming from the tender to power this whole unit. All right. So the engine is done and ready. All I have to do is put this back on it. And these always break right here and here, so I glued that back together. And we will have to do a little dusting on this engine as it sat on the shelf for a long time. But that's okay. I'll have to put a number on here too. This was Lake George and Boulder. All right, off to the tender. As this video is getting a little long, we will come back with part 2 for the completion of our Aw Nuts engine. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's go run some trains. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Be safe, stay healthy. We'll see you down the rails, and God bless.